how this flame of fire was manifest in the burning bush. And there you have an angel of God's presence, which some actually say it was actually Jesus. Now, Jesus, being a messenger in the Old Testament, was very much active. And often an angel of the Lord is often classified as being Jesus in the Old Testament before he's made flesh. Of course, you picture there, well, I guess kind of pure spirit but then made flesh in the New Testament, so he could be like us, to understand and walk with us, and give his life blood for us. Well, that's interesting that he gave his life blood. Why life blood? Because the life of all flesh is in the blood. Your very nature is actually in your blood. Your DNA is in your blood. So everything you are comes from your blood, the blueprint of life, as you now understand. So when it said, the life of all flesh, that's man and woman and human and even animal, the life and creatures, even insects, the life of all flesh is in the blood, the DNA, it's all in the blood. We know that now, and the very blueprint of life is in your blood. It's who you are. It's where you're coming from. So the light of the blood, in this sense, symbolizes the spirit, the soul. It's not quite the soul, but it kind of symbolizes but it is in reality not only symbolic of who you are. So it's kind of like on the line of your life blood. It's in his blood. It's in his nature. People say, oh, it's in his blood. He gave his life blood for you. It means he's kind of giving his spirit, his soul, everything he is in his blood, so to speak. But because it goes deeper than this, because it's the spirit in essence that Jesus ultimately gave his spirit and his life blood. Every drop of blood was poured out of Jesus when he gave his life blood. He gave his very soul. Everything he is was in his blood, so to speak. His DNA, it was all in the blood. It was pure. And it was pure spirit, in other words, but also giving his life blood to save us as the human beings. And then because Jesus there was made flesh, in that he's human before he gave his life blood, as is. And then he gives his body, his life blood, and therefore his body dies, gave it all for us, so that we could have a new body. Now this is interesting because here we are in this body, but one day we'll have a new body, a resurrected body. And Jesus, rather than our life blood being the kind of blueprint for life there, it's more a case of we'll be more like Jesus. Jesus is this kind of like the first fruits, it says, the first one to resurrect, conquering death. And anyone who receives Jesus will also eventually receive a new body. And the new body will be just like Jesus' body. So there is a verse on, and it's interesting to look at on that one. When he appears, it says, beloved, now are we the sons of God. Now, if you've received Jesus. But as many as received him, Jesus, to them gave he power, right? So spiritual power to become the sons of God. So if you've received Jesus, you then have spiritual power to become a son of God in the true sense of the word, you having a choice. You can choose to be more the son of humans in that you reject the spiritual. Or you can choose to be more the son of God in that you receive the spiritual, Jesus. You see God as your Father, your true Father, the Father of spirits. And so you're kind of born again into another world. That which is flesh, and that which is spirit is spirit. So now you're operating more in a spiritual sense rather than so much the physical. So you're a physical person, but if you choose to receive the spiritual, then you operate more in a spiritual sense in this life to the day of your death. Now, it doesn't just stop there, because the whole point in receiving Jesus eventually is that you receive a new body. You have presently this body, just like Jesus did. Jesus came to be human in every sense of the word, like we are. But then he dies and rises again to show us how we can be eventually if we receive him. Him being the first fruits, the first one to what they call resurrect, change in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Now, this is all very interesting because we're touching and looking on how the spiritual works.